Good, thank you, Premier, for that address. And now I'd like to facilitate 10 or 15 minutes of question time. If we, just so that we have a little order, we do have a roaming mic, and feel free to put your hand up while the previous questions being answered, so that we can get the mic to you to try and save some time. So, who would like to start? We have one right at the other end. Isn't that always the way? And of course, it would have to be someone that drove from the other end of the island. So, have we got we have got one there. Thank you. Please just say your name, where you're from, and ask your question, rather than a statement.
Robert Dobrinsky, Launceston City Council. Premier, thank you very much for your address. I think there's a growing recognition of the difficulties in the Tasmanian economy and the strong action you're taking to address them. Referring to the competitive advantages that you indicated and the fact that there will need to be capital to provide infrastructure to realise those competitive advantages, has there been any consideration of selling some of the trading authorities that may be realising a moderate return to the economy and may be able to realise capital for the state budget?
Well, thank you, Robert, for that question. And as we said last year in the budget that I brought down for this financial year, that we are not interested in selling our core assets in our government business enterprises. So those core assets of the Hydro, Transend, Aurora, they're core to what we need and for the long-term planning of Tasmania as well. And in fact, we've got an energy review that's going on right now, which will help inform that debate and what may need to occur in reform in that sector. But we are prepared to look at assets that are non-core. Now, at this point in time, I don't have any assets in front of me that I'm looking at. The major asset that I did have in front of me was that of Tote Tasmania. And we felt that it was not the business for government to be in running a wagering business, a betting agency. And a betting agency, which in this global competitive environment that the internet is putting out there with other forms of gambling, was in fact losing value every single day it stayed in government hands. So yes, we are prepared to look at asset sales if there is a strong business case for it and it makes sense. But we're not just looking to sell off the family farm, so to speak, to prop up a budget. We've got real structural problems that need to be addressed. And what we need is the support of you and others in the community to help us get through the tough aspects of the delivery of those decisions, because they're not easy and they do hurt communities. And we've experienced that already, but we know if we don't make them, we will never deal with that structural problem that is now there in our budget.
Premier, thank you very much for your speech. And when you said there that the revenues...
Name, please.
Sorry, Jack McKenna from McKenna Technologies. And thank you for a great presentation and a promise for a better future for small business in Tasmania. It's great appreciated. But being in the business for the last 20 years, we never have any issues with fair work and industrial relations. In the last 18 months, we have 3 incidents which put a great demand on the business dealing with those issues. Do you believe with your counterparts in federal government, which is current Labor government, can do anything about it to review current fair work practices in industrial relations, which you can see in Tasmania especially, puts great strength on the small business, especially in the business who employs about 20 people.
Yeah.
What is your prediction for that? I mean, you expect a business to invest and a small business to employ more people. How can we do that if we restrain so greatly with the current industrial regulations?
Yes.
In the last 18 months, we have seen so many businesses closing down because of those issues. What is your predictions to that, please?
Well, you're not the first small business to raise that as a constraint, and certainly I believe that the Australian government has been going through a process of review to see how their industrial relation laws have been working on the ground, and how far they go in looking at what changes they may be prepared to make. I don't know how far they may be prepared to go, and that's something for that government to make the decision over. But it seems to me that we do, in decisions that governments make, they are pendulums that swing, And I certainly believe that the other John Howard industrial relations trial, in that sense, went too far the other way. And what the Gillard government and the Rudd government have tried to do is to bring it back to the middle ground, to have a much fairer system for both employees and employers. Now, whether or not they've reached that is what is now being looked at, reviewed, and from what I hear from the small business sector, there are some concerns. But that needs to be aired through those processes that the Commonwealth Government have. But we certainly are trying to do what we can through the Economic Development Plan, and the Minister for Economic Development has a small business strategy to try to work with small businesses, and we also have a Parliamentary Secretary, Rebecca White, who looks after the small business area as well. So we see it as a critical part of the broader Tasmanian economy. The payroll tax exemption doesn't necessarily help you because you don't have the number of employees to even be eligible to have to pay for it in the first place. But that is also a mechanism that we have been able to put in place to work with those medium to larger size businesses to help them to create the jobs in the economy, which then create the incomes that then use the small businesses such as your own. So it all is really quite critical and important, but I take on board your issues. Yep, certainly, Robert.
If I could just add to that, excuse me, that's a very good question. One of the things perhaps our state hasn't used to its full advantage in the past is COAG. And this particular question that was raised, the national chambers, and TCCI will be certainly participating in it, are actually meeting the Prime Minister the evening or the afternoon, full afternoon prior to COAG. We will be also briefing the Premier Treasurer a week before COAG, which is only about 2 weeks away. This and the areas that we wish to raise with the Prime Minister in this particular inaugural meeting, and it will become a meeting prior to every COAG, is exactly this particular issue and issues, which is what's restraining business. Where are the areas that the Commonwealth may be able to help without adding more dollars? It may be very much in the area of policy change. So we will certainly be briefing you on the 3 or 4 issues that the national chambers will be raising, so you can take them to present to the Prime Minister. Question over here. We've got a few more minutes for questions.
My name is Mark Cooper from Cooper Automotive. I've noticed that the payroll tax threshold has not been amended since 2002, but my wages has gone up by 35%. Is there plans to readdress that threshold?
No.
Why not?
I'm sure you'd love it, but in the tight financial circumstances we find ourselves in, we are not going to be increasing taxes, and nor will you find us in a position of decreasing taxes. And either to change the formula that we have in place with payroll tax will do one or the other. Increase taxes, that's great for my bottom line, not good for business. Decrease taxes, that's awful for my bottom line at a time where we are seeing continual deterioration in our revenue base. So now is not the time for reform for payroll tax. Remembering that we did reform land tax not so long ago, and in fact we've lost around about $30 million a year in revenue because we're no longer collecting that in land tax due to those reforms the last election, in fact. So that if you want to reform on payroll taxes, we'd have to then reform on other taxes like land tax. And I think we know what we've got, we know the lay of the land. It's better that we keep it that way.
If I could also just add on a footnote, the TCCI for 3 or 4 years have been exactly pushing your point. The Premier Treasurer is well aware of it, and it's something that we will not let up on. However, we also understand the restrictions that the Premier has just outlined.
Yes, Ken Mitson, a local businessman concerned. Honourable Premier, the logging industry, there's one particular job in Townsville where 42 trucks are on a job carting logs to go to Chip, to go overseas. 40 of those trucks are Tasmanian trucks. 40 of those drivers are Tasmanians that have left this state and a lot of them left their families behind to go to another state to keep wood chipping. An honourable West Australian Premier said a few months ago that national parks don't make money. What is doing to our chip industry achieved for Tasmania, and has this caused the problem you now find yourself in with your falling revenues from GST, because the people that were making the money and spending the money in this state are no longer here? Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, for that question, and it's a very pertinent question in light of what is happening in our forest industry and has been happening for some time now. Unfortunately, in the forest industry, a lot of the change that's occurred has been driven by changes in markets, and it's a demand for the product that has changed. Now, I understand that there are other parts of Australia that are still selling wood chips. My understanding is those wood chips are from plantation forests, they're not from native forest, and that the markets are basically saying they don't want native forest wood chips. The other element that is a key problem for us right now is the high Australian dollar is making our wood chips uncompetitive. So in recent times, we've had 4 shipments that were meant to go to China deferred because the Chinese didn't want our wood chips. That's got nothing to do with intergovernmental agreements, it's got nothing to do with forestry debates and people sitting in trees and so on. It's to do with the market. So we have to respond to what the market is now demanding. And right now, the market does not want our wood chips. And it is a concern because as a Labor government, we actually believe that you can strike the balance between protecting high conservation value trees but also ensuring that you have a sustainable forest industry. And it is concerning to me when I see and hear of people who've left Tasmania in order to be able to pursue jobs elsewhere. And it's very concerning to me to see what's happened just recently with Taran and that company, a good company, having to downsize by 40 jobs. It's absolutely appalling in my mind, particularly as we are trying to work through a process that's trying to deal with the pressures in forestry and deal with the issues that the market are saying to us that they don't want certain product coming from Tasmania. And that's what the intergovernmental agreement is trying to do. It's not the cause of the problems in forestry, it is absolutely a response to the problems in forestry. And we need the clear air to be able to progress those discussions, to get the information together that we need to help inform the next steps in those discussions. We don't need environmental groups out there undermining it by flying off to Japan and places and undermining directly the markets of our companies who are providing jobs for Tasmanians.
Thank you, Premier. Guy Barnett from Guy Barnett Consulting in Launceston. What are your views on the prospects for the Tamar Valley pulp mill? How do you reconcile your position as Premier with that of Nick McKim, one of your cabinet ministers who is opposed to the pulp mill? And likewise, you've mentioned Taran, your strong support for Taran and their exports, and likewise Nick McKim's strong opposition to it and its exports, and the impact on that on sovereign risk and the way we are perceived here in Tasmania, both within the state and from the mainland.
Well, thank you, Guy, for asking that question as well. And I think one of the beautiful aspects of living in Tasmania is that we do live in a vibrant democracy. And Nick McKim has his right to say what he believes in, and he represents a group within the Tasmanian community, and there is no way that I can or should be trying to gag him purely because he is part of a coalition government in that sense. However, what it does mean is that it's even more important for the Labor Party, and where we agree with the Liberal Party, that we do stand united on issues that we are in agreement on as well. And the support for Taran is one of those issues where we should be standing united. Unfortunately, the opposition are playing politics on the intergovernmental agreement. That's an issue, but there are some fundamentals where they can put politics aside and stand with us, and I hope that they do. Pulp mill, we all know Nick McKim has always disagreed with the pulp mill. Surprise, surprise. He's not going to suddenly turn around and agree to it. But what is important is that 80% of our parliament actually do support a pulp mill. And it was really exciting to see that someone of Richard Chandler's standing within the wider global investment community is willing to put his dollars into guns at this point in time. Now, that doesn't build the pulp mill, but it certainly provides a certainty for the company that will enable it to take the next steps to actually get the financing to build that pulp mill. And in my mind, there is no more important time than now for that project to go ahead. It is a clean, green, sustainable project. It will be fed by plantation timber. It is world-class technology that will be used for that piece of infrastructure. In my mind, there remains no good reason to not have that project go ahead. Not in my backyard is not good enough in my mind. It is an important project that does need to proceed. How close we are, who knows? If I knew, I'm sure the stock exchange would want to know, and there'd have to be official announcements and all sorts of things. I'm no clearer than anyone else in this room in terms of when it will go ahead or if it will go ahead, but certainly it has my full support.
Just one last question. A question John wants to
Thanks, Premier. I think it's terrific to see the focus on containing and reducing costs in our economy, and particularly the rigour around the reporting of the measures and the progress that's being made towards those measures. And I also think it's really good that we are now placing increasing focus on the opportunities and how to build the future revenue streams that will actually fix the economy as opposed to contain the deterioration. My question really is, given the quality of the reporting on the problem, could future mid-year and end-of-year reports provide equivalent focus on the steps and the progress against our future initiatives?
I know that John is a very strong supporter of having other key performance indicators out there that we can all be judged against, and we're working with him and others in the community around what those sorts of performance indicators might well be. Of course, we already do have an important community indicator through the Tasmania Together process, which does judge us against a number of social, economic, environmental and other key indicators as well. But we are moving, of course, always to try to be more transparent in our reporting, and our quarterly reports on the savings strategies are part of that. Our quarterly financial reports that we are moving towards as well are part of that. And in terms of reporting on the positive elements of what else government is doing, we can certainly look at that. I'm always out there trying to sell the good news in relation to what is in fact happening on the ground in Tasmania, because there is a lot of very good news that is out there. The struggle we have is people either hearing it or it being reported, which is an issue for us as well. But last week was a prime example of where there is absolute strength in the Tasmanian economy and for future investment and jobs that are not that far away in the dairy industry. I won't forget being in the Midlands area just towards the end of last year when we were able to announce that in fact we've been able to now invest in another dam that will look after the southern part of the Midlands area, and the excitement of the farmer there when he said, well, see what we're doing here at the moment, we've got poppies, they're a high value product, but over there we're grazing, and what we could do with that land over there is turn it into far higher production yielding crops and likes of walnut trees or olive groves or vineyards or whatever it may well be. So there is a lot there to look forward to and to be able to work across the community to see Tasmania absolutely thrive.
Thanks for that, Premier. And I'd just like to now introduce, for those of you who weren't here this morning, Jason Kombovsky, who is the Commonwealth Bank's National Executive Manager, just to say a word of thanks to the Premier on behalf of us here today.
Thank you for that, Robert. Look, on behalf of the Tasmanian Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Commonwealth Bank as the major sponsor here today, and everyone that's gathered, it's my great honour to move the vote of thanks to the Premier. Premier and Treasurer, and I think it was really today with your hat on as Treasurer that you spoke. I think it was clear and plain to everyone in this audience that you have a great appreciation and understanding of the numbers that go into the budget, but not only the headline numbers, the concepts that sit behind those numbers and how they impact upon the Tasmanian economy in a practical sense, and that was very clear today. As a banker, first and foremost, I'd have to say that it was good to hear that you understand the need to have a sustainable budget. Craig, when he gave his presentation, said the answer to everything is China, but every so often it is Greece or Portugal. And I'm pleased to see that you understand that you don't want the outcome to be Greece or Portugal here, and that you have to have a sustainable budget with underlying surpluses and keeping an eye on that. And as I said, as a banker, that was very comforting. So, on behalf of everyone here, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for being frank and honest and answering some very straightforward questions that were put to you in a very straightforward way as well. I know that's appreciated. Not many of our politicians are frank and to the point, but I think you were today. So on behalf of everyone again, can I please ask you all to give the Premier and Treasurer a big round of applause for her time today. And I just quickly wanted to say on behalf of the Commonwealth Bank, a big thank you to the Tasmanian Chamber of Commerce and Industry for putting on what has been an absolutely fantastic event today. I was so pleased to see so many people here, 285 I think you said, that have turned up, and as I mentioned earlier this morning, I have attended the budget breakfasts, which I know are attended very well, but I think it's a testament to the work that the TCCI does and the respect that it's held in here, not only in Tasmania, but also I think around Australia as well. So I think a big round of applause for the TCCI would be appropriate as well. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much for that, Jason. And I'll just very quickly wrap up now. I think it's almost time, and we like to allow, yes, we've got 3 minutes, so it allows people to get back to the office. And if you've had a couple of glasses of wine, you might need to take a minty or something with you. I think there's some outside. Nothing like long working lunches, and this one started at 11:15, but we held off the drinks till later. Just while the hotel staff are here, I'd just like to thank the Hotel Grand Chancellor Hobart for, we have many functions here, and their team is absolutely first class. They're polite, they're unintrusive. The food, of course, is superb. I believe a new chef came in a few months ago, so we just thank you very much. Please join with me in thanking you. Again, Jason, thank you very much for sponsoring this and bringing Craig down for us. It's greatly appreciated. The calibre of the relationship between business and with dry economists. Mind you, this morning wasn't a dry show if you weren't here. It was a very, very good presentation by an economist who very clearly knows, understands and can articulate clearly to business what impacts on business. To Southern Cross Austereo, some of you may have seen some ads that were running during the tennis and promoting this function. It's a relationship that we've now come to with Southern Cross, and so we'll be running more than likely the next 3 months. We may have 3 business leaders luncheons. If I told you who the next couple of speakers might be, I'd have to shoot you. They're extremely high-level business people, powerful people in this nation. And we will be having them down. Hopefully we'll get 2, perhaps 3 leaders' luncheons in over the next 3 or 4 months. And again, Southern Cross will be promoting those, and also the Tasmanian broadcasting in the north across the commercial channels. The object is to, many of you senior business people are aware of what we do, but there are many out there that might be driving around in their ute, or they've got the radio on in the workshop, who need to know and understand that there's a lot of work being done on behalf of the whole business community here by TCCI and other organisations. So that's why I'm giving a pretty strong plug to Southern Cross. And to the TCCI staff, these things don't just happen. To Judy Fair, who I know she'll cringe try and get under a rock, but a great job again. Thanks, Judy. listening. Again, a very sincere thanks to many of you who travelled a long way. Hopefully you've been able to get some things out of this, meeting new people, hearing new information, seeing firsthand what you'll more likely see on a 2.5 or 3 minute news item tonight, if you're home in time. And yet there's a lot more that goes on behind those interviews. So thank you very much for coming. Please return safely to your workplaces.